What we're going to do is, John gave me a little background, and a lot of times when people hear, hey, Dr. Polanyi graduated from Harvard, was selected by the National Institutes of Health, is kind of the up-and-coming scientist, invited to speak at numerous conferences across the world on biochemical and cell assays. A lot of times people may think, that I was, I don't know how to put this nicely, bred to be a scientist, right? And a lot of times growing up, I was absolutely infatuated with science from the beginning. I was, at a very young age, as young as I can remember, I'd be the kid that'd be out following the trail of ants, seeing where it ultimately leads, looking at the different foliage, seeing the different leaves. Why are some leaves orange, some yellow? Learning about the different keratins and the different chlorophyll components of the botanicals and how one can benefit from those. And so I've always been absolutely intrigued with science. And for you, those that don't believe me, I can show you the absence of prom dates that will absolutely validate that I was in love with science. There we go, thank you. Much more. In fact, the science has always been my first love. And as I've gone through my scientific career, becoming a scientist was one of those things to me that was almost unattainable, right? I had no idea what it would take to become a scientist. I am a first-generation college student, so the idea of becoming some type of doctorate or scientist was as far-fetched as becoming a rock star or a linebacker, and was something, yes, you can wish for it until it's time for reality to set in, and then it's time to stock the shelves. And interestingly enough, that's what I was doing. I was stocking shelves at Target late at night. That's why I was graveyard, and that was my job. I'm married. We were expecting our first kid, and child. Goats have kids. Humans have children. We were expecting our first child, and many times he has the manners of kids, but he is ultimately a child. And we were there. My wife and I. My wife's everything I'm not: athletic, charismatic, and she played, college-level softball. We were out playing catch, and ultimately we were playing catch, and she said, hey, what's your plans for supporting us? And I said, I don't know. There's only so many shelves I can stock. And she said, well, what would you always want to be? And I always wanted to be a scientist. I always wanted that. I'm infatuated with the human body, the natural world around us. And I remember those few encouraging words of, let's do it. And that was super inspiring to me. Ultimately, here's something that was so complex, but was boiled down into the simple phrase of let's do it. And so often we may be so overcome by the challenges that are in front of us that we realize ultimately everything begins with the let's do it. I did not know how to begin that journey or how that journey would take, but I did know that first step. Ultimately, I needed to enroll. And as John said, I didn't start college until I was 22. And we started the college experience, got quickly involved in the lab, was able to apply this knowledge that I had amassed unconventionally through random reading of textbooks as a young kid, of studying the world around me, visiting numerous museums, reading nonstop as a child. And then I was able to advance relatively quickly. Those discoveries that I made as an undergraduate were recognized by the scientific community at large, National Institutes of Health. And ultimately we saw that let's do it, that first step was taken. And before you know it, you walk down that dark cave, and you may not see the end of that tunnel, but you see the next 10 feet in front of you. And ultimately, over the course of that journey, we are now here. Now I am a scientist, right? Able to apply this knowledge that some may say serendipitously happened, that serendipitously came through taking that simple step of let's do it. And it's been a fun journey. It has absolutely been fun. And the best part of becoming a scientist is being able to see your innovations, your discoveries come to fruition. And that is what is so amazing about this opportunity that I stand before you today, and why I believe that this is absolutely a partnership. Because I can have the greatest innovations, we can have the greatest products, but ultimately it is only as good it is to reach out to the individuals and the benefit that it brings. And that is why it's such a great honor to be working arm in arm with you of this cause of helping individuals more effectively live their life through proper natural medicinal properties. And so it is a great pleasure to be here with you tonight, and as we talk about essential oils, the power they bring, the absolute efficacy they have, and ultimately where this journey has begun with the Mayo, where it's continuing, and where the next exciting steps are going to become. So In the words of Disneyland, hold on to your hats and glasses, folks. This is going to be a fun ride. So, first thing I want to do is kind of explain what are essential oils. I'd like to get a little feedback here because it's interesting how many people have different perceptions of what an essential oil is. And I have never heard a wrong answer. Anyone wanting to volunteer? Let's see if we...
Lifeblood of the plant.
Lifeblood of the plant. Excellent. I like that. That is very good. And so I want to expound on that a little bit more, but that summarizes it very well, right? There's the thesis statement at the end of the first paragraph on that, right? Lifeblood of the plant. That is absolutely correct. When we look at a plant, plants have a unique challenge that a lot of times we ourselves don't really understand or grasp because we live in a different world. When we look at the cell of a plant, it is very close to that of our cell, right? It has DNA, just as ours does. It has the mitochondria. It has all of these different subcellular organelles that mimic ours. The only real difference is a cell wall. We do not have a cell wall, they do. They have a cell membrane just as we do, but they have a cell wall that exceeds that cell membrane, that limits its ability to really kind of create any motorized movement, right? It doesn't have the ability to create or to provide innovation to help itself flourish. You know, just as we protect ourselves from disease by washing our hands or running away from the swampy, murky water or deciding not to eat this contaminated food, the plant really doesn't have that option. The plant has to have all of those components that not only protect it from potential ailments, but are also there to sustain its life. A botanical has all of those things individually in each and every cell of the body as the whole of the plant. And think about that. You know, without a proper circulatory system, in each cell it contains all of those powerful components it needs to fight off ailments. Its own immune system, so to speak, each cell has. Its own ability to create and sustain that life, to fight off potential viruses, bacteria, all of these powerful components. You know, plants have to ward off against bacteria just as we do. Its immune system is in these constituents. Its immune system against potential viruses are in these constituents. And an essential oil is being able to take that lifeblood, those constituents, and enrich it. And as you can imagine, those constituents are exceptionally powerful, but also exceptionally rare. And that is why one has to take literally tons of botanical to get a few precious ounces of that lifeblood of the plant. And so that is, in short, how I term an essential oil. And what an amazing power it has, that giving power that it has that we are able to harness and utilize to help ourselves progress. And so the next question a lot of people get, or that I like to answer, is, do essential oils work? I got an absolutely. All right, we'll move on to the next one. No. So what I want to do is I want to kind of illustrate this. Because as we move along, right, I want people to understand I absolutely believe in the power of essential oils. I absolutely believe that. Not only as being able to see it firsthand, the testimonials, and to see how it has changed people's lives, but also as an unbiased scientist, looking at the thousands of articles published across the course of history, and to take both the scientific mind and the observational mind and to see the effects that essential oils have, it absolutely work. And so I want to just kind of diagram how we know essential oils work. In fact, a lot of times we are using those same constituents in some realm, not necessarily in the pure natural realm of essential oils, but many of the constituents that are so effective in essential oils have been synthetically made and commercialized, and we use them in our daily lives and not even realize it. You know, the pharmaceutical companies, they know they work. They don't want you to believe it is, but all they do is really try to copy that which nature has made and sell it to you. It absolutely works. So I'm going to give an example here. I'll draw it over here. No bells ringing. We know what this is? All right, we'll get there. We'll get there. All right. So what I'm going to draw here. It's a molecule. Who knows what this molecule is? Those who were in Hebrew the other night are not allowed to answer this question. What is that?
A peanut.
Close. Also known as methyl solicitate. Very close. It's a very close acronym. So what this is this is methyl solicitate. This is at about 99. It makes up about 99% of the constituents in the essential oil wintergreen. Now, methyl solicitate, we all know wintergreen. The power of wintergreen when we apply it to our bodies or muscles, how it helps with those aches and pains. So, do you guys know that the active ingredient in Bengay is methyl solicitate? Do you know that they have known about this for so long, but have actually what they believe pioneered it into, created it into Bengay, when it has been utilized for thousands and thousands of years in essential oils? But what is sad is though they have commercialized it, they have ultimately adulterated it and lessened its efficacy. And I'm going to diagram that process, right? So there's going to be two pathways I'm going to draw here that yield methyl solicitate. This is the synthetic route. Much cheaper to make. Pennies. You can get gallons of this. Very cheap. And this is the synthetic way. This is where you would see it on your icy hots, your Bengays, your muscle rubs, so to speak. You start with phenol. This compound is called phenol. This is actually a very strong acid. You work with phenol a lot in the lab. This is kind of what would be considered your building block compound. You use this for the synthesis of so many different compounds in the lab. But it's exceptionally toxic to where, as a chemist, we work with hazardous stuff all the time. And there are a few compounds that when you work with it, it is absolutely required. You work with it in a fume hood because they're so toxic. I'd like to introduce you to phenol, one of those compounds. This is where you start. You start with an exceptionally toxic compound that will burn the nerve endings. This is actually the active ingredient in chloroseptic spray. Have you ever sprayed that in and wonder why the back of your mouth goes numb? It's not because you're numbing those nerves. What you're doing is you're actually frying the end of them. That is the mechanism by which chloroseptic spray works. They use this. So what they do is by putting in carbon dioxide, that which we exhale, that the byproduct of our electron transport chain, of our cellular respiration, and sodium hydroxide, a very caustic. How many people use sodium hydroxide, right? This is something that feels good when it hits an open wound, right? That's hydrogen peroxide. Sodium hydroxide is actually even worse than that, right? Very caustic. The pH of this is so high, right? Acids are low pH, bases are high. This is a very, very strong base. And the extremes of both bases and acids are exceptionally caustic. What this does is you then get something where it's starting to resemble that of methyl solicitate. You just have these sodiums here instead of the absence in this hydrogen, right? We're on that pathway. But now what we have done is we've introduced so many things that are so detrimental to the body along this pathway. Oh, I didn't leave myself enough room. We can then continue on this pathway by introducing hydrosulfuric acid, one of the strongest acids, if not the strongest acid known to man. Exceptionally hazardous, not only to plastic, but also to life as well. The cells, our body, exceptionally hazardous. We're close. We just need to get rid of this hydrogen. What do? We add methanol. How many people have heard of methanol? You usually see it as you're sitting there pumping up with gas. It says 10% methanol, right? That's what they dilute the oil with to give you that gasoline, right? Methanol, and hear this. Methanol is actually pretty interesting. It's really close to ethanol. You drink ethanol, you get intoxicated. It's a little bit different with methanol. You drink methanol, it is absolutely so poisonous. It's one of the most basic molecules, but it's so poisonous, and at very small concentrations actually causes blindness. So hazardous. Now, ultimately, blindness when one can't see.
No, just what's the difference between something that we'd all know what we call methane and methanol? Is there any connection?
Yes, so a methyl group is that's a methyl group, that compound, a carbon with 3 hydrogens. So a methanol is that with this, right? So ethanol is 2 carbons and then the OH. That extra carbon makes you all of a sudden get liquored up, take one of those carbons away. You are now brailing your way to that party. So it's a completely different experience. And methane it's a gas, a byproduct of what one experiences after Los Hermanos. So now, right, we see, even though they end up with this, anybody can tell you that the purification processes in that chemical yields are never, never absolute. In fact, when one has this, one is getting all of this. Think about that for a moment, right? Now on the label, all they have to do is put this. All they have to do is put that. And they may say, hey, methyl solicitate, apples to apples. No, there's such a horrible backstory to that synthetic methyl solicitate that is so unknown and so toxic and so damaging. Now, let's introduce that which essential oils yield in wintergreen. I wish we had an artist here. And maybe someday as I communicate this more and more, I'll be able to draw a beautiful wintergreen plant up here. But until then, I will write wintergreen. Now, wintergreen just doesn't give this. One has to introduce steam distillation. That's it. All we use is the power of water to bring out this methyl solicitate, amongst other critical components in the wintergreen essential oil. So, does it work? It does. They absolutely do. Muscle rubs have made billions of dollars off proving that it works. The difference is, with an essential oil, you're doing it how nature intended. With the typical muscle rub, you're introducing so many unnatural, hazardous, toxic components along the way. And interestingly, in muscle rubs, you're usually at about 30%. Just to give you an idea, at wintergreen, as I mentioned, you're around 99%. It goes on and on, the amount of data out there to support the efficacy of these products. So, how many people know what a major constituent in peppermint is? Oh, what was that? Peppermint essential oil. Menthol. So menthol is actually fairly similar to this. Now, I don't know if there's many chemists out there, but the menthol, all it does is you just take away this benzylic ring. So now it's, So now it's kind of a locked-in structure. It's not as fluid. But menthol is actively used in so many components. The reason it is it's actually helps be a vasodilator. It increases blood flow locally. This has been documented time and time again. There are numerous things. In fact, a lot of times it is a powerful combination with that of wintergreen for muscle rubs, because they'll apply this menthol to the area that's sore. You're increasing blood flow. Likewise, you're applying the healing power of the muscles with that of wintergreen. Hence, a muscle mend blend that is coming out soon, that is combining those components together. We see that menthol is used time and time again for its cooling powers. Right? We see it in certain headache creams. We see it in certain muscle rubs as well. We see it in certain drug deliveries to help facilitate blood flow. But again, I won't even go into the synthesis of menthol because that is about a half hour long. I would recommend, if you are ever needing something to help you to sleep, read into it. A guy actually won a Nobel Prize, I think it was in 2004, because the chemistry behind it is so intricate, so delicate, and so many steps to create it. But yet, ultimately, it is so much cheaper. So ultimately, where do they go? Out of the synthetic route. And so what we see is time and time again, that which we use on a daily basis is often originated from the active and proven efficacies of essential oils. Antibacterial products. Thymol is an amazing constituent found in, obviously, in the essential oil of thyme, is an powerful antibiotic. And so what we see is so many commercialized ones try to mimic that which is inherently found in nature. But when we read into the data of thyme oil, what we see is it actually does not provide the resistance that you see with the typical ones. You have longer durations of effect. You don't see the toxicity to other healthy bacteria. The list goes on and on about the benefits of getting it naturally than versus another synthetic component. So does that answer everyone's question, do essential oils work?
Yeah.
And we went through with very little bell ringing. Excellent. You guys just graduated Chemistry 101. So the next thing I want to do is talk about, we talked about how so many things are based off of essential oils. And so how can we use them in our daily lives? So often people look at essential oils as, hey, it's expensive. But what they don't realize is that it can be used in places so many different things. And so what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about how I myself use essential oils. A day in the life of Joshua Plant. Now, we can put our hats and glasses back on because it's not a very exciting life. But what we'll do is I'll talk a little bit about how I apply those essential oils in my life and the benefit that they give me. So, as I started off my story with my wife, we were expecting our first children. That story has been repeated 3 other times. So we now are on our 4th child, just had our 4th. As you can imagine, children, I'm sure you all see this, are they're the greatest ever, and they're also the greatest petri dishes, right? They are everywhere. They're playing, and we encourage that with our kids. Go out, play, get dirty, have fun, experience the world. But the sad thing is so often their only option to really clean is some antibacterial hand soap. Now, has anyone read the FDA? About a year ago, the FDA came out and talked about your antibacterial soaps. Did anyone read that with the FDA? What did that say?
That they're not so great as they touted them to be.
Yes, that they're not as efficacious. What else? They actually said other things. Break down the immune system. There's actually, the FDA came out and said, you know what? Let's hold off, guys. That which we are claiming kills bacteria, it does it a little bit, but not very well. And we are finding it to do so many hazardous effects to the body. So it's a whole review system about this is what's just happening. So often we look under a microscope, we apply chemical A, B, and C, and we see it kills bacteria, but we don't realize the ramifications that ultimately has. One can kill bacteria exceptionally easy, right? All you need to really do is burn it. But ultimately, I wouldn't recommend running through a bonfire as a way of getting rid of the bacteria on your hand. But a lot of times when we go through and we commercialize components, that is the mentality we take. We see that it damages, it kills bacteria, and we don't think of the long-term potential effects it has on the human body. So what is so great about essential oils is the time-proven history, application of them. They've been used for thousands of years. That is the biggest case study, clinical study I've ever known about the application and safety of them. And so what is so amazing is this is probably the one point I use it the most with my children, is helping them. We'll wash with a natural, non-antibacterial soap, their hands to get the dirt off, but then we'll apply essential oils to them to help disinfect their hands. The powers of of thyme, of peppermint, these components that help disinfect their hands. Likewise, how many people enjoy drinking water? How many people enjoy drinking water that's flavored? All of a sudden, the kids are raising their hand, right? This is something that we absolutely introduce into our household. It is difficult enough to keep your children hydrated. But now, when we sit down with each family meal, all of a sudden, water is now the focus point of the kids' meal, of the kids' day, where they have the excitement of not only being able to drink, but to add it themselves. We find flavoring is such a powerful and exciting way. It's one of the things that my wife absolutely adores because my kids have such a fun time doing it, where they're combining different components. We're making cakes and say, hey, let's do 3 drops of peppermint this time and 2 drops of lemon. Let's see what it yields. And it is such a great component to get these powerful healing constituents into our body while also having a great moment with our families. I also apply essential oils on a regular basis. I travel a lot, and I can tell you nothing helps me sleep better than that of lavender oil on the pillow or being diffused. It's a regular around our house, and especially come 8 o'clock at night when you have an 11, a 9, and a 5-year-old rambunctiously running around waking up the 1-year-old, you find that lavender oil is an amazing way to help still the family at night. And so for us, it is critical with the essential oils that are so powerful in their disinfecting properties, carry those on a regular basis. Oils to help calm us after a long, stressful day. Lavender, such a daily use at our house. Lemon, grapefruit, bergamot, all of these citrus are so fun, so pleasurable for the kids. Now, insects, right? Repellents. You know, going back to essential oils work, do you know that one of the most effective insecticides is one of the major constituents in your citrus oils? It's highly commercialized. It's out there. It's all so often used and tried to mimic, but it is inherently naturally found. Now, if I'm a plant that can't run away from some fly or something that's going to try to eat me, don't you think I would have one of the most powerful insecticides residing in me? Here I am. That's the equivalent of a steak just sitting there in front of us, helpless. Wouldn't the steak do everything it could to make sure it tastes bad to the guy who's trying to eat it? That is the power of essential oils. You know, and we live on the wrong side of tracks in Provo out there by Utah Lake, and what we see is all of a sudden we're being carried away on a nightly basis without the proper application of these essential oils with the mosquitoes. And so we see overall there are so many applications, and you know, this is where I see that essential oils, we can't give you all the education tonight about the application. You know, there's great resources that we've put in place for you to do this, but there are so many tools of where essential oils, the active ingredients, we're using all over the place. We just don't know it. And as we educate and learn how we can substitute the natural remedies for that which has been synthetically made, we find that we are able to limit those antibacterial toxins that are just now being exposed through the common over-the-counter hand soaps from our husbands, our wives, our children, and we are able to introduce natural, safe, proven through thousands of years of experience.
Doctor, I'm a writer, and I wrote an article about a peppermint-based 99%, the only active ingredient in the insect repellent was peppermint oil. And I read it in comparison to DEET, which is the common stuff that's there, and it was amazing the difference. But here's the point is that as soon as I mentioned that I liked the peppermint oil instead of the DEET, I got calls from every lobbying group in this world for DEET, saying how wrong it was for me to write about natural oils or essential oils instead of going with the standard there. And it taught me that what we have too is a commercialization to the point of ignoring the facts, but a commercialization of specific chemicals instead of going back to the natural side and actually trying to denigrate those who are using natural products.
Yeah, and this, you brought up an interesting point, and I'm going to go a little tangential here, is, you know, ultimately when I graduated and finished my fellowship, I had many opportunities to go to many different places, you know, and I had the opportunities to work for companies that are designing the next DEET, to identify the next drug, to help find something, to mask the symptoms that they're feeling. And one kind of goes through, right? All of a sudden, you know, I grew up in a small town called Menthol. I'm sure maybe many of you heard that for during the early years of my life, and turkey farming to where being a first-generation college student and having these steps placed in front of me, one kind of does reflection when those opportunities are presented. And one realizes it's awfully easy to sell out, so to speak. But ultimately during this, if my true love is science and it is bringing about health and wellness to individuals, I needed to be honest with myself. I needed to be honest with the results I saw throughout my work. I needed to be honest with the results that I knew. And so I had to turn down those very attractive financially offers and pursue that which I completely believe in. And yes, I believe we are absolutely pioneers in a battle, but we have such amazing resources at our hand. And so I haven't regretted it one bit. To be able to help thousands of individuals help prevent something that a disease that can be easily prevented through proper health, nutrition, natural remedies, is such an amazing opportunity versus sitting behind a lab bench trying to find a cure for that which could have been prevented if more of this was properly educated. And so I absolutely agree with you, and thank you for that. So next thing I want to do is, I talked a little bit about how I use essential oils, right? Talk about the daily use. There's not a day that goes by that I walk in. My wife absolutely loves to use certain essential oils to help purify the air. Some of the blends that we have to help with so many of the allergens. We have been for quite some time that house where it's just kind of essential oils radiate. In fact, I don't think neighbors within a 5-mile radius ever have to come to a Mayo because they get more than enough that is coming out. But what I want to do is I want to give somebody the opportunity here to kind of give a little bit of a demonstration with essential oils themselves, right? Who was at convention and saw Dr. Penawall's use of lavender? Anyone?
I was there, but
Like there? Who's comfortable showing their feet?
I will.
Excellent. Do we have some lavender oil here?
I have.
I've got some Life Unlimited.
Life Unlimited. This is smell. Go
I have
ahead.
lavender.
You've got lavender? Either one. What would you like? Would you like some Life Unlimited paid for by John Raines?
No, let's do Life Unlimited. That's a expensive oil. Should have got it.
So, he showed, hey, where you can, do you remember the application of how he did this?
Like rub his feet together.
Yes. I'd like for you to do that, right? And as I do this, as she does this, right, here is something that can be done each morning, right? He used lavender, right? Something that can start you off right. Here's Life Unlimited, this powerful and an encouraging blend to help you start your day, right? And we see that essential oils have so many different things. Now, are you starting to smell that?
Mm-hmm.
You starting to feel it on the feet?
Yeah.
You're getting so many different applications all at the same time with the one single use, right? The benefits of aromatically breathing these in are absolutely better. Man, I'm smelling that. It is good, huh?
Yeah.
Let's leave that open. This is on Raines, right? You know what, let's take this and we'll just pass that around. Let's all get a little hit of that, huh? This is absolutely good. So what we have here is we can see, just taking a few moments, we are able to give our body those powerful constituents that we need. All we're sitting down trying to fight that alarm clock, right? We're sitting on our tired bed. All we have to do is sit and apply a few drops, rub our feet together, and now all of a sudden we're getting that determination to go out and to seize that day. We don't even have to get our hands dirty, right? We can just rub our feet together. Thanks for that. So what I want to do is, as she does this, is we can talk. Yeah, thanks. We can talk about breathing versus application to the body and how, through all these different pathways, we are able to get multiple benefits through a single application. So what I want to do is talk about the sense that we breathe. Dr. Penwell brought up a good point, and I absolutely believe in this. The nose knows, right? And the nose knows what's good for it. There are certain reasons why certain things smell so bad to us. They smell bad to us because our body ultimately knows we don't want to consume that. There's a reason why when one is out playing in the yard and they step in the remnants of the dog left behind a few hours ago, you're repulsed. It is because inherently that is not good for the body, right? That signals to our body. That is one of the strongest communicators. You know what? Let's not use our hands to rub that off. Let's not. It's one of those things that inherently and instinctually teaches you. In fact, the power of smell is so instinctual that the mother's milk while she is nursing, the smell to the baby, they have shown that signals certain endorphins that create the emotions of love. Right? Here is a 2-day-old infant that is smelling that, is able to all of a sudden have these endorphins go on through the smell of breast milk and start to experience the dopamine spike that creates love and bonding. right? We see so many applications, or so many benefits of smell. It is really kind of the guide in our lives of what is good for us. You know, there's a reason that these things smell so good, is because they are inherently so good for us. The nose knows. And by having that, we are able to get those benefits. So when we look, I want to talk a little bit about, again, one of my favorites, essential oil thymol, right? The these constituent in their thymol has the amazing properties of opening up Gaba receptors. And I know that sounds like a punk rock band, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of draw this out. And this happens when we breathe. And how when we breathe this, we can create a complete physiological and emotional and health benefit to our body as a whole. So if we magnified, I was going to say blew up, but that can be interpreted wrong. If we magnified the mind, right, we'd see trillions of neurons interconnected. These are the roadmap, you will, of memory, of thought, of release of properties in the body that help us to heal, the release of certain signals in our body that allow us to create responses of energy, to allow us to feel sad when we're supposed to allow us to realize we need to have our heart beat faster, slower, our blood vessels open up, to have more adrenaline, less adrenaline. Ultimately, that is all signaled and began here in the mind. Mind is the control center. And we may think that the parts are not interconnected. They absolutely are. It's that mind that can do it. Right? In fact, by smelling certain things, we're able to dilate the vessels and to expand the vessels and lower the systolic pressure through just breathing certain compounds. This is so well documented. And so when we look at this is a very realistic rendition of two neurons, right? You have the axon, and then you have the dendrite, this part here. And what it is they'll communicate with each other through signals of sodium, potassium, calcium. These ions, what they do is they will travel from one into the other. And that is how all of these trillions of neurons communicate with each other, is by the exchange of sodiums, potassiums, calciums. And with that, it just doesn't readily flow. It is so tightly controlled. In fact, what you'll have are these things called Gaba receptors. These Gaba receptors help those cells properly communicate with each other. And then when those Gaba receptors are impaired, that is where we see problems with thoughts, creating memories, remembering things. We see the onset of neurological problems. GABA receptors are directly linked with Parkinson's and other types of things, the degradations of those receptors, because what you are seeing is that those neurons are not able to connect. Now, there's been so many documentation, but what is interesting is this constituent found in the essential oil thymol has been shown to increase the ability of GABA receptors to release their ions, to more effectively control and to regulate their function. What power lies in just breathing that which the plant has given. And so what we see is so many ways our bodies are absolutely needing these constituents. In so many ways they are... Oh, go ahead.
You mentioned an oil that would assist with high blood pressure. Which one are you referring to?
I can't speak of that over here. There's great resources that I would recommend pointing those to. John can probably assist you to those. But due to the sake of, I don't want to make any claims. There's thousands of people's jobs that depend on making sure I follow laws and regulations.
And then you mentioned the systolic measurement, but you didn't mention the
just the study that I'm particularly thinking about was looking specifically at that.
Do you think it would have an effect on diastolic, or you can't mention that item?
Yeah, I would prefer not to, but those are good points, and we can maybe talk afterwards.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, so what we see is the power of just by breathing these, how one can have. This was mine. As we see the power of breathing. Now, ultimately, when we breathe, what that is happening is that it's signaling to the cilia in certain cells. There's cilia that will go out. They're like floating around, and they will find constituents, and they will absorb and take those in, and they will then signal to the body. And so what we have is we have created an ability for us to effectively respond to our whole body through a few aromatic compounds, starting that cascade by just breathing them in. And so what we have is a powerful approach. But as I mentioned before, it needs to get into that cell. If it falls on dry land, that cannot give us that benefit. And so I'm going to speak a little bit about what we have done to ensure that our essential oils are actively doing that. But before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about what clinical grade is, right? One of the things, as we live in the essential oil world, it's a crazy, busy world out there. It's a crowded world, so to speak. And what makes an essential oil clinical? And what power does that give us, and the confidence that gives us as essential oil users? Now, as I mentioned before, essential oils are so well studied. Scientists absolutely love studying them because of the it's like a scientist's dream to where, hey, you can say you discovered something by just pretty much finding an essential oil, and all of a sudden, hey, look at all the power, all the benefits that this compound has given us. Don't mind where I found it from, I'll teach you how to synthetically make it, and look at all the glamour I get, But ultimately, scientists love these essential oils because it is such a plethora of healing power. And so by studying them, scientists have created an amazing library, an amazing database to ensure that the essential oils that they are utilizing are the unwavering and proven standard that have been documented in so many thousands and thousands of reputable studies out there. So when we think about this, as a scientist myself, I would spend 2, 3, 4 years working on something. I would absolutely want to make sure, if I was studying frankincense oil with respect to a certain ailment, I would want to make sure that which I spend the next 4 years working on is absolutely frankincense oil. In fact, I would want to make sure that it is not only frankincense, but it is the same frankincense that my work is building upon of the study that was done 2 years earlier. Likewise, that study that was done 2 years earlier wanted to make sure it was using that same oil that was shown to help in so many ways a few years earlier. And it has created this standard to make sure that all research is looking at that same particular frankincense oil. And as a scientific community, we pride ourselves on that. Because as a scientist, the key of science is that it is repeatable and that it is measurable. And all of a sudden, if one person is working on frankincense and can't repeat it because he's working on a different type of frankincense, ultimately the scientific community falls apart. It's not a repeatable experiment. And so it is absolutely critical that there are certain standards put in place. And what these standards allow us to do is to ensure that you are working with a grade that is unwavering, a grade that has been well documented and proven time and time again to deliver the benefits. And so what we've done is we have utilized connections and resources to create an amazing clinical standard library, to where we have been able to utilize the reference libraries, the oils that are often used in those reputable studies to create a reference that we then compare each of our oils to, giving us that same confidence that the 2003 paper where they looked at frankincense oil with respect to certain cancer cells is the same one that they are holding in their hand. Or the 1994 study where they looked at lavender oil with respect to anxiety is the same quality and standard that they are holding in their hand. And what is so great, it is not us that did that study. It's a scientist who had absolutely no bias, a scientist who had absolutely no agenda who did that study. And you can feel confident that you are referencing, that you are utilizing, and that you are comparing that which you are holding in your hand to that same oil. Now, it's not easy to create that library. It has been years in the making. It is absolutely not something that is done overnight. And it is actually an ever-growing and evolving and maturing library. You know, that's something that we continually pride ourselves on, is that we can find additional resources to add to that library from different studies from across the world as we vet and make sure that they are reputable. We can add them to that library to create even higher and higher standards as we go forward. And the Mayo is the only one with that clinical grade essential oil, giving you that confidence. What power lies in your hands? And interestingly, just to give you a little reference, when one buys as a scientist, I'll use peppermint because that's an easy one to compare. When one buys as a scientist the peppermint oil from these particular companies, where one will source them from, these reputable companies, the vial that is about 5 milliliters, we sell it in 5 and 15, costs about $400. And think about how we are able to utilize so many resources to deliver it at such a cost-effective point. The next thing, as I talked about, is that cell-active and permeable. We are the only company that is able to show and document that our oils are cell-active and permeable. This is usually traits and skills and tools that I have developed over 12 years of working in the lab to be able to characterize how essential oils are interacting with the cell, how they permeate, how they're able to influence those Gaba receptors, how they're able to function at that basic unit of life. And so by doing this, we are the only company that is able to show in real time as essential oils penetrate in living human cells, endothelial cells, your skin cells, your fibroblastic cells, those cells that make up the intestinal tract. We look at all different types of cells to see and show and demonstrate that these essential oils do, in fact, penetrate living human cells, giving you that confidence that they absolutely work. No other company is able to show that. We are the only company. We have patented the technology to make sure that you as distributors have that confidence as you are sharing these oils, that you are able to show it with such confidence and exclusive to being an Mayo distributor. This is so breathtaking. I remember actually the first time that I saw this. It was about 2 a.m. It was a Friday night. That's where most scientists spend their Friday nights, is in the lab. And I remember at the time, as scientists, you'll start with different types of cells and gradually work your way up to human cells, which are usually the most difficult cells to work with. And so what I was working with were Xenopus cells. It's frog cells. Much easier to work on those than they are human cells. And I remember looking, I was using spinning disc confocal microscopy, and I was able to track. I was able to use a microscope that would show me colors. And I remember looking, and at this time, what I was tracking was structures inside the cell that are responsible for making sure that constituents are taken to certain places in the cell. Because even once the constituent gets in, it's just not inside the cell. It's important to make sure it goes to the right location. The cell is so organized, so structured, and so maintained, it is absolutely amazing. And so as I was looking at this, and I was able to track, as I see this molecule moving within the cell, how the cell was able to take it and put it in the right place at the right time so that it was able to be healed. I remember, hey, there's certain eureka moments, right, that the scientists will never forget. And it was up there with my children being born where I started to weep, right? Here's years of work and being able to show. And what we are doing is we are applying that same technology to the oils which you are holding in your hands. And what's so great is that you are able to see this for yourself. What power comes in being able to witness for yourself, because for so long this industry has been the Kremlin, so to speak. It's been East Germany, right, where we don't know what's going on. Right? It's North Korea, where all of a sudden we just know some missile was launched 12 days after it happened. We're opening it up. We want you to see that for yourself, what is going on. And that is why we have created the Ameo Difference, where it's a website where you can look, and at the lot of each oil you can put in that lot code, and you can see for yourself as that essential oil that you are holding in your hand becomes active and permeable in the cell. In addition to the baseline standard of tests, which are so common in the industry. We are exceeding that with our clinical grade, our cell active and permeable, and all the other data out there that was done on that particular oil, giving you the confidence that you're not living in North Korea.
So I looked on certain lot numbers and found that on the website, and my question is, it qualifies it, but it doesn't quantify it. So is there plans?
On the GCMS,
Yes.
that is absolutely true. She said, hey, on the GCMS, you qualify it, but you don't quantify it. And what that means is, you don't share the percentages of all the different constituents. As I mentioned before, we have spent an amazing amount of time, resources, knowledge of creating this clinical library that we then hold each of our essential oils to. Now, if we revealed what those percentages were, what we do to our competitors is say, hey, it's been a tough couple of years amassing this library, but we'll do it pro bono for you. Here you go. And I'm sure, absolutely sure, the people that want us to reveal it the most are those that would save millions of dollars of not creating that library for themselves. And so what we've done is we wanted to do that and show you that, hey, those tests were done, but we're not revealing what our 26 secret spices are. All right. So what I want to do is I want to end, I always like to end where I began. As I mentioned before, my journey becoming a scientist started with that step where I didn't know where the next step was going to be. And 12 years later, the opportunity that I have to see my innovations, my discoveries come to life, to helping thousands and thousands of individuals more effectively live their life was something that was completely unfathomable before, right? From turkey farming in Sanpete County to this is an amazing, amazing experience. And what's great, and as me as a scientist, what drives me is not what I know or what has been discovered, but what yet I don't know or what has yet to be discovered. And I'm absolutely confident as we continue in Ameo, we are going to be the leader in scientific discovery, scientific application, innovation, and further qualification and discovery of essential oils. We pride ourselves on marrying the best that science has to offer with that which nature has to give and bringing out the best in both. And it is an amazing opportunity to be working hand in hand with you as we have this amazing journey of letting people know that that muscle rub they are using has been used for thousands of years at 300% higher concentration without those powerful toxins, and in so many more experiences. And so thank you everyone for this opportunity, and have a good night.